Hello everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Photo Editor. We're going to be looking at a technological achievement of color photo in this episode. We're going to be looking at how to edit a photo to look like Technicolor in Photoshop. So that's quite a bit of a change from the black and whites I usually specialize in, but I do enjoy a good Technicolor. For those who don't know, Technicolor was the color photography process that was used in a lot of movies up till probably the late 50s, and just looking through some images here of some well-known Technicolor movies. We have one of the original Robin Hood movies here with Errol Flynn and Olivia de Havilland. We also have the Wizard of Oz, and we also have some stills here from Alfred Hitchcock's movie Rope. So you can see Technicolor images, they're quite saturated and bright. Now, most of the photos I take are not done in a studio with a full big lighting, so even though we will be imitating a similar color range, that won't necessarily mean that we'll still have the big studio-like look in all the images. That will kind of be another step for another episode to work into that effect. Now, I've already done a bit of an experiment for practice in this method already, so we'll just look at it now. So this is a photograph I took of someone who was hosting a film class I did a while back. His name's Alan Schaller, and so I played around with the methodology to get the Technicolor look, and you can see it here where, particularly on his jacket, how cool but also quite vivid the coloring is. I did do a bit of enhancement afterwards on his hands to make them a bit more prominent, but you get the idea, particularly on fabrics and where there's a nice color and there's a lot of good lighting. It really comes into its own. And so let's begin a new image. So to begin with, we'll look at now, this is not actually a method I came up with myself. There's a few recipes, you might call them, online. This is one in particular which I found to be effective, and I'll post a link to this web page with the same methodology that I use, so you can have a go with it yourself. I may or may not be doing further edits to the image once I've processed it into the Technicolor effect, but you'll at least get an idea of how to get it to the raw color range. So this is one I did earlier of Flinders Street Station to edit that into Technicolor as well. So you can see it's quite cool and vivid again. But that is a pure architecture piece, and I'm hoping that in this other image I have here, a street portrait I took with seeing the man's bright shirt, we'll see a much more interesting image, and we'll see also how it affects the landscape around him. Now, just so you didn't have to wait for me to wait for the photo to buffer through, the way I got it here was I was just looking through my Lightroom gallery, and I just went for click, edit in, and just open as an object in Photoshop. So I use a joint Lightroom and Photoshop package. You'll have your own ways to, you'll have your own preferred software systems, which may or may not be independent of Photoshop. So I'll just have the recipe here at hand in case I forget some minor details, but let's begin now. So in your Photoshop image, you will have your channels. Now, to begin with, I need to make effectively with Technicolor, the way it worked back in the day was you almost had three cameras in one, each shooting with a filtered layer of red, green, and blue, and combined together, you had the special Technicolor look. And so, effectively, this recipe I'm using is creating extra copies of the red and green layers of the image, and adding a certain color fill effects. So to begin with, I need to create a copy of the red layer. So go to select all, Command C to copy, navigate to layers, new layer, and we'll call this the red channel. And then we go Command C to, Command V to paste. Yeah, and so to make sure that that's happened successfully, you can see where it was just like a checkered pattern before in this square, it's now got a picture inside it. Then go to the green channel. Select all, Command C, new layer, which will be the green channel, paste that in again, so Command V. Okay, let's see, remind myself. Okay, so now we need to create a new color fill layer. And so we're going to be creating a cyan color layer. So we'll go to layer, new solid color fill layer. And it's going to be called cyan. Okay, so we have like the full color palette here, and we chose, so we need to get this formula here. So red, green, and blue, 0, 255, 255. And so leave red at 0, and get green, 255, blue, 255 as well. Yeah, so you can see why it's called cyan. Now cyan has to be above the green channel layer, which it is. We now change the blending of the cyan layer to multiply. Yep. And now we need to create an extra color adjustment layer. Which will be so red fill. All right, now this one will simply be R255. Drag that over the red channel, and that too has to be changed to the multiply. Now we need to group together the red and the green channels, so Command and select both the reds, group from layers. So now we have red group, and so yeah, we had to change the red group blending to screen. Okay. Same with the green layers. Green group. Change that to screen as well. Okay, so now we can see the Technicolor effect. Now, Technicolor is quite cool, and it does look a bit washed out here. So even though this is the general effect of Technicolor, I might make some further edits in Lightroom to maybe darken the man's head and hands, and there is quite a lot of extra space in the composition of this image, so might cut out some of that and maybe do something with the building to darken it just a little bit. Okay, so we've now exported the photograph through to Lightroom, and we're going to develop it here. I always forget how to most easily access the tabs. Okay, let's start with cropping it a bit. I did like that we sort of have the negative space of what the man is photographing, but we probably don't need so much of it. Do we want to lessen it on his head a bit more as well? Sort of follow the rule of thirds with his kind of cross between his hand and glasses. And that line there is a little annoying. Okay. Zoom out a little. Okay. Probably up the clarity on his head and hands a little bit. Helps it pop out a little more. Maybe add some texture around his skin here too. Okay, now, like I've said before, I find Technicolor looks best on a fabric, but we'll see if we want to add a bit of clarity and how we like it. It's pretty good. I quite like the reflection we're getting on his glasses. I might see if I can up that a little bit, but we may not have to. Sometimes less is more. Texture to the fabric as well. Doesn't really make that much of a difference here, and so I might just leave it as it was. Okay, so we've got an idea of so I'm pretty happy with the figure now. The background is just still a bit too exposed for my liking on this occasion, so we'll see about downing that a bit. And kind of a bit of less exposure in the background does work for that sort of old slide film look. try and have all those little gaps blend in. It's a little too much over there. There's a bit of light feathering over here, so I might try and fix that up. Still a bit there, so I might try and just crop that out just a little bit more. Probably to do with the way the sun was angling in. Yeah, it's about the same. Yeah, we'll leave it like that. Okay, so man's head is popping out a bit from the background. We've got a bit too much of a halo. So I might actually try and reduce some of the lessening of exposure just immediately near his head. Just pick the points where it's most around him. Okay, so when we press on these two spots, we know from where it shows up red, that's where it's also been around the man's head. And so those 2 points, I might restore the exposure just slightly. And if it is too much obvious a contrast in the rest of the picture, we can work on that after. Okay, so it's a bit more better balanced now where his head in the building is. So if the main issue is where we have this really bright light on the back of the building as well as the skyline, might try and balance it in just this section. Sorry if you hear my little dog Odie in the background. He must have found a favourite toy or something. You'll get to see him in a future episode, I'm sure. Okay, so just focusing where the sun's been. Yeah, so that does balance out a bit better. Yeah, so his hands are a little fuzzy. Let's see if we can help fix that a bit as well. His hands are probably reaching just out of the focus point of the lens. When you're doing these sorts of micro touches, just make sure you zoom out again afterwards to make sure that what you've done doesn't stand out too much. Okay, that's a little bit better. Probably don't need to do too much fixing on the foam because we don't want to distract it. Kind of the focal point really is around his glasses and his head, as well as the shirt. So I'd say the Technicolor colouring to begin with has made a bit of a different impression to how we view the picture. It's got quite a nice range. There are probably other subjects where the effect of Technicolor is a bit more exciting and noticeable. There is the picture I showed you before of the teacher Alan Schaller, and yeah, well, you can see just how much can be done with up close with a really brightly coloured piece of clothing, and perhaps where the lighting just isn't quite as overexposed. So I hope you have enjoyed this program, and I'll look forward to sharing with you the next one. If you liked what you see, as always, please hit subscribe on the channel and tap the bell notification. Also, check me out on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. I release new content almost every day, and I am now planning on releasing new episodes of this show twice a week instead of once a week. So we'll have some more chances to learn the craft together. And as always, thank you for watching. I will see you next time.